let's just answer the Raavad and then just finish the Aruch HaShulchan because he gives us a good. At least one of the points the Raavad brings up is going to be the segue into this Gemara we have to do. Okay, so just again to review, we understand the principles in the Rambam. Okay, just what they are. I can't answer the why question, but there's two things bothering the Raavad. Okay, as the Aruch HaShulchan points out. What's the first one? Who's reading today? Yaakov. Read the Aruch HaShulchan's Raavad. Aruch HaShulchan Shin Ches Sif Beis. He kind of expands the Raavad a bit.
Hikshalav Raavad, Shad B'Gemara, until the Muktzeh and Esra with the Israel Tzah. Until the Sarhatza.
Who?
Right? So he's saying that the reason of Muktzeh was only instituted because of Hatzah.
Right. So he said. So what's his kasha in the Rambam? He's saying, put aside the fact that it sounds like a factual kasha. What's his kasha in the Rambam? No. So we defined this yesterday. In other words, the machlokas shinem is that.
It has to be grounded in any.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have an isser. You can't have an isser d'Rabbanan that's not somehow attached to like a. In other words, he wants shemas. Right, he's a Shema guy. So he says, like, how can you have an Issa D'Rabbanan that isn't directly related to some sort of Issa D'Oraisa, specific Issa D'Oraisa? So that's really the machlokas. But each side has a weakness, because the problem with the Rambam is that, what does he do with this Gemara, which is a good question.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
We'll get to that, okay? That's not for now. All right, we have to go through the Gemaras first. But the question you ask on the Raavad is that, yeah, but it's an amazing thing. Hotzah is a limited Isser, right? What does Muktzeh do? Muktzeh takes that and creates this like massive solar system of Yisur. Yeah. Okay, keep going. Okay. Achi Omru. Right. Chachlia. Nishnas, Mishnah Zu. Right. In the times in Nehemiah, that's when they taught this Mishnah. Why? Right. Ayin Sham. How can the Rambam make up these own reasons? Okay. What's the second kasha? What's the second kasha in the Raavad? What's he asking? What's bothering him?
Rambam just pulled it out that it was hacked.
Okay, but based on what?
It was already established. The reasons were already established.
No. You got it's tricky. You got to know. He's asking a very subtle kasha, but it's a great kasha though, because you don't know the Gemara yet. Okay, that's the Gemara you guys are doing now.
The Mishnah said it's because of a top.
What? That was the first kasha. This is the second kasha.
The second kasha was the Mishnah only lists two.
No. Why does he quote the Gemara? Chazru v'hitiru. Very simple. In other words, like this. What happened? This is what when you read that Gemara, this is what should drive you nuts. Okay, you don't see this ever happening in almost any other halacha like this. What happened? There was an invention of, for now, in quotes, an invention of Muktzeh. Okay, the Mishnah says can't move objects. Okay, and then what happens?
Got more and more mutter.
Right. They kept repealing, relaxing, repealing, relaxing until.
I couldn't do this.
We'll get.
I know, but you said we should have been bothered by the Mishnah.
No, you should be bothered in general. How could no? The Aruch HaShulchan explains the mechanism. You should be bothered in general of how could such a thing exist to begin with. How do you have such a phenomenon?
I couldn't pick up a safer.
But what's it? Well, no. 1 second. So right. So what? Chazal were stupid. So when Nehemiah, assuming it was Nehemiah, first came up with this, right? So what is he, an idiot? So he said, now we're going to answer everything, and then what? Oh, you know what? We went too far. We're going to repeal. What? What do you mean different people? What does that mean? But if the halachic system worked in such a manner, right? Holy cow! Today it would be a different system. It would be a different system today. You don't. 1 second. Who said this is Sanhedrin? Okay, you're assuming that. Number 2. Well, how come there's no other area they do this in? You don't see a Gemara. You'll see the reason why when we go through the Gemara. You never see a Gemara that says Chazru v'tiru, and each one they break down how they did it. We never see that. That's a very rare thing to see in the history of Chazal. Yes. No one's saying, but what's bothering? What's the Raavad's kasha? The Raavad's kasha is like this. The Raavad's kasha is that how could the Rambam say there are objective reasons for Muktzeh if it's clear for the way Chazal acted that they did what?
They changed it. They're subjective.
They kept changing it. Okay? And if there's fixed reasons, how could they change the halachic system to reflect that? Oh, 1 second. But once they did that, right? The question. Yeah.
Like you say, each time they did it, it was still with these reasons.
So that would be the Rambam's answer. But what's bothering the Raavad is that the way the Chazal developed Muktzeh reflects changes. Doesn't reflect like a fixed objective set of reasons. And on top of that, what else? There's another thing that's bothering him. When was Muktzeh quote unquote invented? Nehemiah, right? Which would imply what? I mean,
That the reason should.
well, what is Rambam implying when he says Tamim for Muktzeh? He's implying what?
The reason they were invented.
No, more than that. What's he implying? You see from the Rosh Hashanah's answer. What's he implying by that?
Intrinsic qualities.
Yeah, no, it's like this. At Sinai, right? And I'm pretty sure this is how the Rambam learned. At Sinai, right? There was an idea in potentia of Muktzeh. Such a thing existed at Sinai. Okay, that's the question. But Nehemiah was the one who implemented it. But for some reason, it was like this. According to Rambam, the idea of Muktzeh was always there, but the fact is, it wasn't implemented in the time of Nehemiah. But the Raavad's kasha, that's exactly what the Raavad's saying. The Raavad's saying that you can't say it was. What do you mean tamim? In other words, that would imply that they had this that chazal had a reason. But Nehemiah was the one who invented it, meaning that before Nehemiah there was no idea of Muktzeh whatsoever. Okay, so it's an interesting question to know when Muktzeh really came about. Was it that Nehemiah made up the whole institution, or was it really he just activated a dormant institution? Yeah.
The different Rambam soaking the Muktzeh. The East side of the this the Tchilas of Gezeres Muktzos. He Tchila b'mei Nehemiah. I Chitiu v'chazu v'chitiu.
Now he's giving like a technical answer. He's saying that, and it was Avery Tami that Nehemiah was the one who created it. So how could it be that there was this business of Bezin coming along and relaxing the prohibitions? How could that be? Right? So what does he say? He says, because what's the technical issue? You need what? So you need a greater Bezdin to do that.
In
Okay?
number and quality.
Quality. Let's say for now quality.
No, it's both.
It's really both. Okay, but just keep going. So he says, right, that doesn't seem that way, right? But that's what I've said. Gedolim here means what? Not in quantity. He's referring to greatness. Okay? Right. It also doesn't appear that in times of Nehemiah they did this. Right. I mean, I'm just saying on the surface, it sounds like what happened. We'll get into this also. But during Nehemiah's time, what were Jews doing? They were being Machal Shabbos. So I'm just saying, on a very surface level, Nehemiah's reaction is portrayed as being very worse than that. I mean, almost like a hyperbolic reaction. Like, oh my God, they're bringing over Isha Shabbos. What do I got to do? I got to come in with an institution that does right. You can't move anything except for like a spoon. Which not quite as even more extreme than that. Because if you think about it, if you look at the Mishnah is telling you how many kalim were you allowed to move. Well, in Barishona, how many kalim were you allowed to move?
3.
But that doesn't literally mean 3. It just means categories. But those categories are limited to basic.
The same category.
They are. I'm saying, but we're not going to think into that. It's big machlokas Rishonim about what they're referring to. But the point, though, is that in Nehemiah's first rendition of Muktzeh, what was your Shabbos like? Very tiltal free. I mean, basically, you're talking about spoons, forks. What?
Walk around naked? You can eat with utensils, that's about it.
That's it. Right. It's wild. I mean, but that sounds like, I mean, you're saying without, obviously we know Nehemiah didn't do this, but on the surface, it sounds like Nehemiah's reaction was like I got to whip him back into shape. So I got to take the bad Jews and put them into this like massive what do you call other extreme. It's almost like the Rambam's idea in Hilchos Deos, right? The other extreme, and then slowly bring them back into the middle.
Fire, someone in the Arctic.
Right, but that obviously that can't be literal. But okay, yeah.
So,
His answer. So what does he say? He says, you can't tell me that Nehemiah. It doesn't appear that Nehemiah was the one who relaxed the initial prohibition, right? The Ode. Not only that, you also had the super guys. You had.
Why does it matter though?
So he's implying that if you're Navi plus, remember we did this by Minhag too.
Yeah,
but the Kanas Nevi'im is like, Bezin can't mess with the Kanas Nevi'im.
Yeah, but it's not new.
I understand. He's saying another kasha.
It's not indicating.
Yayimam, right?
Right.
The Ode. Okay, so he's trying to defend the Rama. Okay, and that's pretty clear. Now, so what does he say?
Next.
Okay, so hold off on that. We'll come back to this after we do the Gemara. Okay. So let's start the Gemara slowly. So the Mishnah is Kuf Chav Gimel Beis in Shabbos. The Mishnah says.
All can be
Moved. That's what it means. Picked up means to move. Tiltal.
Chutz min master hagadol, separate big saw.
Okay.
You see it in the operation.
which is what?
Literally the peg of a plug.
Right, a peg. How do you know? One second. So far, when you read this Mishnah, you should be pretty happy. Why? Because it sounds like when it comes to Muktzeh, everything's allowed, right? I mean, from the Mishnah, I'm just saying the implication of the Mishnah at this point is that you can move every kli you want to, right? Why couldn't you move these other kelim? We don't know. Okay. We don't know. We're in the Mishnah. Okay, start the Gemara from Tana Rabbanan.
What did you say?
Okay, Barishona. What is Rishona referring to?
Beginning of Muktzeh.
So in the initial inception, when they got together, when Nehemiah, we'll use the Nehemiah way of learning. When Nehemiah and his fellow Chacham got together to create Muktzeh, what do they say?
3 things can be used.
The Shabbos.
Right, meaning everything else sucks.
Correct.
Right.
Miksel Shal Tvela.
So shall Tvela, a solid figs.
Vizuhama, a utensil used for figs. Vizuhama listrin shal kedera. V'sachin tana shal gabe shulchan. Okay, so whatever. So there's three kelim you're allowed to use. What are these kelim share in common?
Food.
It sounds like they're really made for food. Okay, like the zuhama is a big spoon to take. It's like a ladle. The sachin kata. But when I say categories, I mean is that doesn't mean like a fork would be a problem. Of course, you're allowed to use a fork. Okay, but so basically, in the original inception of Muktzeh, what were you allowed to do? Allowed to move? Virtually nothing. Okay, right? So far, so good.
Objects.
What?
Food-related objects.
Seems like food-related objects. That's it. So Shabbos is a very
distinction between the 3 food-related objects.
no.
So why?
Yes, but not that we're going to take up. Okay, there is. The Rishon take it up, but it's like that leads you into other areas, which I don't want to do. Okay, go on.
Etiu, made more things mutter. Because Vitiu, made more things mutter. Because Vitiu, made more things mutter.
Okay, so you have this very strange phenomenon where, for whatever reason, why Chazal decided to relax what they instituted. Okay, which is not once, by the way, but 3 times. Okay, and as you'll see, the 3 times equals out into about between 5 to 6 steps. So you've got Sfarach, and then there's Machlok between Rav and Abaye. So you approximately have 12 conceptual steps to work out. Okay, so let's start slowly. Okay, let's just read. Let's look at Rashi. Rashi says Hitiru, the 3rd wide line.
Etiu,
Ode. So when they saw that the people were what?
Being more careful to avoid a switch.
Right.
Because of Etiu,
Kishnizar Yoser. Now, why is this such a problem? That's what I said before. What is Rashi saying? Rashi's saying that when they saw people behaving themselves better, what do? They laid off a bit. Can you imagine the halachic system work like that today? I mean, you can. Okay, but does it work like that today? Well, first of all, if anything, we become chumrized, right? No? I mean,
if we had authorities with the power to revoke.
So let's take up Abaye first.
Abaye. Etiu is the first 2.
Yeah.
Etiu devar shemach the letter. L'serach gufa.
Stop. Kli Shemalach Del Heter means what? Just Kli Shemalach Del Heter.
This is generally used in
a non-usher fashion on Shabbos, right? Tzorach Gufo means what? I'm not taking the fork and using it for a mutter non-fork activity. Non-normative activity for fork. So again, let's use practical examples. What's a normative use of a fork? Yeah, that is what Tzorach Gufo means.
eating.
If I take a fork, and what am I using it for?
Stabbing food.
What?
Stabbing your food.
Well, no. It's a tough piece of.
Eating food.
Either no, that's normal usage. Okay, and normal usage is if I take a fork and I tap you on the shoulder with it.
Scratch your back.
Okay.
Oh, it's saying non-normal.
Scratch your
A
back.
non-normative use of the clay.
Scratch your back.
So again, if kli shemalachto leheter l'tzarach gufo is the relaxation is in tzarach gufo, what does it imply that was mutter here? 1 second. That's a good question, and we're trying to take up what those 3 things are. But one thing for sure, I mean, I'm not blaming you for missing this, but there's no way Chazal could ever have an institution where you can't move a klisha malachto laheter for its normative purpose. How could they ask for that?
You couldn't sit on a couch or whatever.
Yeah, how could they ask for that? That's absurd. That can't be. There can never be a situation where Chazal said in the beginning that klisha malachto laheter you can't use it, you can't move on Shabbos.
So you couldn't move a chair, for instance, to sit in?
Right, you would not have to do anything. You would have to literally be, it would be like choshech, makas choshech, right? Stuck in one spot the entire Shabbos. It's absurd. That's impossible. So of course, klisha malachto laheter is always mutter. The first relaxation is to add in gufo. Clear?
Why is that different though?
Gufo? So that's heter number one. Heter number one is klisha malachto laheter. You can now move it for a purpose other than its normative purpose, for a non-normative purpose.
Right.
Okay, next.
Where do you see that around? Can you show me where you read that?
Next sentence.
Read what? Okay, so then you have Makomo, okay? That's the next relaxation, okay? Of course, the question you have to ask is,
Why is that more firmer than that?
meaning why, right, meaning in here, right, Makomo was still Asa, right, but Gufo was Mutter. So why is this somehow more Mako, right? Okay, so we know here, I'm going to put it small, Asa, okay? Keep that in mind. You have to keep in mind, you got to understand what's going on here. You have to keep in mind, built into these are Havim and Maskanas. You understand? Built into these are, this is a massive Svara land. I mean, if you like Svara, this is where you got to be. There's every one of these has a little bit of Havim and Maskana. Like, what is it about Makom you think would be a problem, and now why they're relaxing it, okay?
This is Swarland.
We're in Svara land, okay? Next. Is this clear? What does Makomo mean? What's Sark Makomo mean?
I want to place underneath the fork.
I want to play, right. So in other words, my Kli is on my table. I'm having guests over. So what do I want to do? I got to move the Kli to make room for the plate, right?
So you couldn't do that at first?
And in this period of time here, you cannot do it.
And this was a real period of time, like this actually happened?
I mean, Rashi seems to say yes. I'm not as concerned about that. But Rashi seems to say, I think it's more of a conceptual thing, but whatever. It appears that there was something going on there, okay? Okay, is this clear?
Yeah.
Okay, clear? Next step. Whoa, okay, so now we got a big issue, right? Now, what's the first thing we're introducing now? Kli, Shemalachto, L'Isser, right? And what's there? Okay, so now, again, just get the shock of Atari down. What does that imply? Well, what does that imply?
There's always us to do anything.
So we know that Kli Shemalachto L'Isser was always a problem from 1 to 3.
And that's for anything at all, right?
Anything at all. In other words, if I have a power drill, right, in periods of time 1 to 3, can I move that power drill? Never. Right? Never. Correct?
Yeah.
But now, this next relaxation is saying that I can even move a Kli Shemalachto L'Isser L'Tzar Kufa. Right? Okay.
You can't move it for its normal use.
Oh, so I never can. Right? So again, here, we know Kli Shemalachto L'Isser, Aser, always. So now we're filling in little gaps, okay? In the beginning, I'm just trying to make a point. There was an idea of a Kli Shemalachto L'Heter and Kli Shemalachto L'Isser when they at the inception of Muktzeh, okay? That was there already, okay? But the question is, for some reason they wait until number 4 to relax the Kli Shemalachto L'Isser issue. And the relaxation is Gufo. The good news for you guys is that whatever you apply here should work here as well, conceptually. But okay. And now give me an example of Kli Shemalachto L'Isser L'Tzar Gufo, a power drill that I'm using for walnuts. Good. Okay.
It's a hammer that you're using for walnuts.
That's your example, not mine. Next case. Next thing. What?
Wait.
Right. So 1 second. But so in this relaxation, okay, it's Gufo, but not Makomo.
But not
Why do you have to
always.
spell it out?
Okay. Why I have to spell it out? And why don't they go ahead and say what? What? Right. For some reason, when it comes to relaxing this business, they stop when it comes to Kli Shemalachto L'Isser at Gufo and don't include Makomo. Yes. So now, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. 1 second. So what does he say again? Oh, hold on. Hold on. Yeah, what does he say? He says, you got to pay attention to this. This is very important. Okay. No, 1 second. Now you have a big shift here. A huge shift. Okay. And this is going to be very complex. This gets even worse. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll show you the reason why. Okay. So now, no, it's still number 5. Okay, but it's like variation. Okay. Yado achas. Okay.
Is that only by 4?
Thank you. Okay, so the question is Yado Achas. How do you learn Yado Achas? Avi's already asked the right question. No, we know. Okay, what does Yado Achas mean? First of all, what does Yado Achas mean? It means one hand. Okay, meaning that the kli is able to be moved with one hand. Meaning what though? That prior to Yado Achas, okay, versus just read, versus what? Versus Shtei Yadayim. Okay, versus Shtei Yadayim. Meaning what? Meaning that prior to this relaxation, okay, in all these steps, all of them, Shtei Yadayim would be a problem.
For what?
Of an object being able to be moved. In other words, like this.
Which
In other words,
all of them?
all of them. In other words, like this. In other words, you got just. This is very important, okay?
This is not.
I have no idea.
Impressive.
I mean, I do, but I have no idea right now. We don't know. We don't know any concepts, okay? But it means like this. It means that when Kli Shamachto Laheter was mutter, it's only mutter to move it when. Yado Achas. When they had heter number 1, Kli Shamachto Laheter Gufo, that's only when? One hand, etc., etc. Okay?
It's not the entire thing.
Exactly. So this modifies everything. Modifies all. Okay? Modifies everything. You understand? That's very important. Okay? So the question is why? And of course, what's the difference between Yado Achas versus Shtei Yadayim? Yeah.
Lo Asham Kokim Nitzah.
So what's the final step?
Everything is good.
So but the final step is what? The final step is that even Shtei Yadayim. Okay?
That's it.
That's the final step.
Kol Kalim means stay down.
No. In other words, Kol Kalim is 4 plus. Sorry, it's 3, 4, and 6. That's Kol Kalim. Kol Kalim is Kli Shemalach Leheter Tzorach Makom Tzorach Gufo, Kli Shemalach Iser Tzorach Gufo, and they can always with Shtei Yadayim. Shtei Yadayim is fine. Not Mekoma though. It's Asher Mekoma.
Always us.
Always Asher Mekoma. Correct.